want to text the good. He's unbelievable. Okay, right there. What are you gonna do after this is over? Will and Paul assure me that they're going to clean up.
No, that's Jenny. That's Jenny.
Sure, but you found yourself.
Hello, everyone. Get started shortly.
It's Sunday. So we have to turn off. I didn't organize it last night.
So,
I got a reading yesterday and found out.
Mackenzie, just so you know, we are live.
So how do you turn it? She's gonna listen. She's taking notes. That's funny, you see that picture? Sure, that's from our last food conference 2 years ago. That's how things are saying. Yeah, yeah. And I very expensive.
I knew I could count on you.
Thank you. I got some break. Should I go before I'm hurt? I'll go before I'm hurt.
Yeah.
That's all right.
No, well, I mean, this was meeting. She I took her to the airport 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh. You look good.
We got Chinese takeout.
Nice.
We had takeout and buy.
It was that is halfway to Bridgeport. There, I got everybody in my brothers. Yeah. I literally got off the ferry, turned around, got back on the second ferry. Nice to meet you. That was fun.
All right. Welcome, everybody. It's our first in-person Writers Speak in almost 2 years, and I'm so excited that you all could make it. Yay. So it's my pleasure to MC this evening for this roster of very talented writers from our MFA program. My name is Mckenzie Watterson, and appropriately, my first MFA reading was the last time I was on the stage, and now this is my last MFA reading, and it's the first time I've returned to the stage. So I'm really excited to be here with all of you. And I couldn't wish for a better group of writers to join me today. New faces and old, I can't wait to hear what you have. So without further ado, let's get to your readings. Our first writer reading today is Frances Gould.
Can you hear me? Yes, okay, great. Okay, this is a poem called Wild Shower. Wild shower, or the thing I feel when their fingers wrap around me into the whirlpool of my belly, pretending we do not hear shooting and breaking and wailing beyond the windows that keep us safe, away, and visible, but as nothing more than silhouettes, cold enough so our shadows can radiate for each other when we want to be safe, away, visible, like cosmonauts who prefer planets from a distance, oil flaring puddles drifting on and on and on, matchsticks igniting every now and again, but more of them, simmering to ash our tufts of broccoli, our rainbow chard, or what have you, stick figures singing their demise through coughs and diamantine blisters. Meanwhile, we listen to the hauntingly alive version of Rainy Night House on repeat again and again, our own private wet season. Anything can quell the flickers and screams as long as you play it loud enough and convince yourself that the only thing we need to hear are chords and the faint echoes of solar flares, the hum of the multiverse. I wrap you in a quilt, the one stained with our mushroom tea, and say, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, for it exists whether we sense it or not. And I can tell you this one fact, but please wait 1 second, I have to catch my breath. So many of us died by our own fire. We won't be among them. No, this is Queens after all. The sun sets when the bodegas close, and more importantly, nothing here is combustible. Thousands of us died by our own fire, not to mention the koalas, who are not us, but they are. They are, and they certainly did not flick the lighter. You cannot see the caramelized koalas in that quilt. You cannot hear them or us in that Joniet universal amphitheater hum. We speak not of our fire, only of fingers and future floods. We count only each other's bodies. Thousands, they said, when we pretended not to listen. They said probably more, and tomorrow will be even more flammable. But we hum that all away, whistle, whisper, and hold each other by the ears. The curls I will describe as nothing but a blaze, even in an ice age. Do I know 1,000 people? Do you? I sure as hell do not. More than 700 and I'd be flummoxed. But I imagine the 699 I know, maybe know, ablaze. Just like that. Location, 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 imagine. Measuring incinerated stick figures per geocode, and yet we hum odes to the rain, which does not pour against our windows. You in a blanket keeping me warm, for that I am blessed. I knew Barbara, I knew Sam, and I know you. Thank you.
you, Francis. The sun sets when the bodegas close. That's a line I'll remember for a while. Up next, we have Felix Grygorcewicz.
Hello. I'm going to read a poem. It is called Belly Button. I can't help but remember. My hand slides over our shared scar, the mark of our emergence from the Ouroboros, eventually curving round. There my fingers scale across mine or yours spinal peaks. Do you remember that hiking trip up Katahdin? We kissed each time we rested, by brook or rock, until I insisted we make camp, for I could no longer accept being even but a few inches from you. You must remember inside the tent how you teased me for donning plaid pajamas. I'm only going to tear them off you, you said, your fingers tracing an inward spiral around my belly. You probably remember the opening above where we counted 16 shooting stars. We laughed at our serendipity, only later learning of the weekend meteor shower. It's meant to be. You may remember this and more. You were always better at describing our bond. You probably don't consider us now. Why would you? The death of us came and went. You aren't really here, just some simulacra I project. What am I doing? Is it wrong to remember? A disservice to our present selves? Do seemingly immutable feelings become waterlogged pages? Blurry ink long ago dripped and smudged and dropped like a bad tab of LSD. I have to tell myself it's just a trip. It's just a belly button. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix, for that poem on our shared scar. Next, we have Cass.
Hey everybody, how's it going? All right. Genies. I hide in my house now, looking through the blinds from the upstairs window where I can see genies on the street corners. They're at all the stop signs where in the past we could only see crying kids. Back in the years when urban legend held that if we left brake stopped and launched ourselves off our bikes at one very particular sign, it would hold us in the air. Just hold us. And for an hour, we might feel like we were flying, if not moving. Every kid tried every sign, and the blood of our hands and knees stained the grass. But now there are genies, and the red grass is covered up by the blue-green smoke that convulses below them. And the new kids can wish for air, and they can wish for flying. And here in my house, I can't wish for anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Cass, for that fantastical story. Next, we have Rachel Edens.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to stick with the theme and read you guys a poem. I've worked here for 5 years. I'm at the train station. 5 days a week, I'm at the train station. I get on the train and I sit. I get off the train and I leave. 5 days a week, I'm at the train station. I get on the train and I sit. I get off the train and leave. 5 days a week, I'm at the train station. I get on the train and I sit by the water filter. I get off the train and I leave. 5 days a week, I'm at the train station. I get on the train and I see a clownfish FaceTiming without headphones. I get off the train and leave. 5 days a week, I'm at the train station and it is a crowded tank. I get on the train and I hear guppies screaming for bags of Cheerios. I get off the train and I leave. 5 days a week, I'm at the train station. I get on the train and I swim. I get off the train and leave. 5 days a week, I'm at the train station. And today, light shines through the glass. I get on the train and I sit. I look down to my phone and read, campus closed. I stop swimming. I get off the train and I hear everything. It is people, crowds of people pushing and piling onto one another. It is people and it is their noise and it is loud. I think I'd rather like to be a fish again. Oh, to be a fish again. Fish again, fish. I must swim. 5 days a week, I'm at the train station. I get on a new train and I sit. I get off the new train and I leave. I prepare for the next 5 days of swimming.
Thank you, Rachel. That poem, even though it was about monotony, was anything but monotonous. Next, we have Scott McKenzie.
Thank you. Good evening. And now for some not poetry. This is from a fantasy novel I'm working on. I don't know if it's not necessarily high fantasy, I guess drunk fantasy, but anyway, here we go. The Iron Knight, Chapter 1. Wake up. Sergeant Gray, wake up. Malcolm Gray slurred awake. Orin, the Grisia of the great temple, blurred into sight. The same dream laid siege on Malcolm last night. A woman with lightning blue eyes piercing him. She was falling. Then a vast dark army, a battlefield shrouded in darkness. Then dragon's fire. Orin seemed to loom as if imposing himself as a new character in Malcolm's recurring dream. But Malcolm was laying in the real dirt of his very real cell, and Orin knelt over him. One of Orin's blue eyes shone in the light of the single candle he held, the other in shadow. He pulled back the hood of his cloak. Orin was cowled in the brown of a common priest, not his usual embroidered white robes, and they seemed gray in the dim, flickering light. Juro Giggins, the jailer, slept in the corner. I have but a moment, Malcolm. Guardsmen are coming for you by order of the master of the guard. Master Baldeg? The word scratched at Malcolm's sticky throat. Why? Malcolm hadn't slept for quite some time. Dreams laid siege on him, even in the deep trench of a whiskey-addled sleep. Orin sighed a sigh of pity and sorrow. He set the candle in the tailings, artifacts still left strewn about from the temple's ancient construction in which Malcolm lay. Orin raked his fingers in the dust and excavated a spall of granite from which the great temple was built. He wondered for a moment how this chip of rock created by the gods, forged by the hand of Alban the Creator, had withstood the ages only to be cut and hewn by some ancient mason in a time long before the word or station of Grija was in the realm's vocabulary. How 1,000 years might nearly pass since this chip had been noticed or considered. How 1,000 years or more may pass until this chip might be held by, and considered again by a man whose station was beyond Orin's ken. Like other men, Orin desired his name to be preserved and remembered. However, the words maketh the man, quoth the ancient text, not the memory of him. Out of curiosity, Orin pressed his thumbnail into the pointed end of the spall, and it snapped. Disquieted, Orin marked how easily it snapped. I shall call in the pilgrim guard, he thought, and tossed the chip in the dust. I cannot interfere, Sergeant Gray. This is a matter for the guard, but if you survive, find Captain Vela. He will bring you before the council as dictated by the code of the guard. I will be holding a council of brothers in conclave with a witan of envoys from the 4 kingdoms. If you are brought before me, I will do what I can. I must go. A darkness rises in the south. Malcolm grasped for Orin's arm. Survive? Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Sign me up for a copy of that novel once you finish it. Up next, we have Shannon Mellas.
Hey everyone. This is the beginning of a novella called Alexis Rush. Death. On the night that Alexis Rush died, she was wearing her favorite leather jacket. It had a tear in the left sleeve and was 2 sizes too big for her, but her father had left it behind on the day he walked out of their trailer and never came back. And so she had worn it almost every day since to remind herself that love, like life, was temporary. Death held his hand out to her, but she ignored it. Alexis Rush climbed to her feet and looked down at her body. Her pale limbs were twisted in unnatural directions on the dark pavement, and her denim skirt had been pushed up to her stomach. "It's time," he said. "No," she protested. "I'm not dead." She wasn't the first, and she wouldn't be the last to fight an untimely demise. But when she swatted at Death's hand, her skin was so warm that he believed her. Alexis Rush was not dead. Detective Olson. I hadn't thought of Alexis Rush in years before she reappeared in my dreams one night. She sat at my kitchen table, twirling her tricolor hair, dark at the roots and bleached in the middle with strawberry pink lengths around her pale fingers. After 3 decades, she still had not changed out of her worn leather jacket or replaced her ripped fishnet stockings. I felt an icy stab of guilt when I looked at her. If she was here, then the truth that I had tried to ignore for too long was finally closing in on me, on all of us. Alexis Rush watched me with her earthy eyes, their youthful sharpness replaced by dark shadows. She looked older than she had, though I didn't know why I would imagine her that way. "When are you going to catch him so I can fucking rest?" she said. I woke up before I could answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. My interest is piqued. I'm ready for the mystery. Next, we have Shauna C Farrow.
Hello. This is called A History of Whales. You know, there was a time when whales were terrestrial beings, these cousins of the hippopotami. Even if they may now pretend they are of a world separate from ours, born from light refracted through thousands of leagues of ocean blue, once they slithered through the mud with us, rose onto long legs and walked with us, breathed air not salty from the sea, but sweet like loam from the inland fields, yes, like us. But they are one of those branches of the family tree that lost touch with us when they left the old country. The ones who left the land of their birth and never bothered to write or call, much less send the occasional check. But back then, in the before, at the beginning of the world, it all looked different, you see. For a while, everything was the sea until the waters receded and the land appeared. And some of us climbed out of the ocean long enough ago to forget where we came from. And even if they hate to admit it now, maybe even have forgotten it themselves, the whales came up onto the land with us too. Indeed, the first whales walked on land for hundreds of years, never stopping until their legs got so tired they turned gelatinous, melding into singular limbs, feet splaying into cloven tails, too exhausted to balance upright any longer. They slid on their bellies into the sea, where the cool salt of the water soothed their aching muscles, sterilized the scratches carved into their skin by the rocky beach, where the gentle moving hug of the tide calmed the anxieties born of life on land. Never again would they have to worry about falling down from their great upright height, about breaking bones on rough terrain, about being overtaken by those who could run faster than them, for they were never great runners, top heavy, you know. In the water, they found that where their 2 legs had failed them, their tails never did. And sure, sometimes they missed the feeling of the sun and the wind and the air on their skin. Who wouldn't? And sometimes this need grew so great, the burn of it setting their lungs aflame, pulling them up, 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 out of the water, if even just for a moment, long enough to take a deep breath and remember what separates them from us, which is blank space. And up next, we've got McKenzie.
Thank you, Shaunacy. I loved contemplating the whales and their movement back into the ocean. So today I will be reading from an excerpt of an essay about my grandfather's Alzheimer's and its legacy in our family. It's titled Running Through Us, and it's forthcoming in the Southampton Review. I wonder if Papa's decline impassioned my grandmother's persistence in recording our family history. She pored over dark wood-patterned plastic albums, filling them with photos marked with dates and names in her shaky handwriting, newspaper clippings, school play pamphlets, marriage licenses, baptism announcements, and family trees whose branches filled more each year as she researched deeper into our past. As family knowledge leaked from Papa's mind, my grandmother preserved us. She documented weddings with silver and gold plastic albums, detailed other albums with records of a small eastern Montana town on the High Line where my father had been raised, and just for me, filled 2 before I left elementary school. On afternoons that smelled like burnt cookies, peonies, and Listerine, she'd put away the crafts and the Barbies and pull out one of the thick albums. "This is my Grandma Deming," she would say. "Here is your grandfather's brother." I looked for familiarities in the faces, these strangers who were a part of me, whose genes I did not yet realize influenced every cell of my body. The nose, I noticed, was the same. Grandmother pulled out her trunk and from it a delicate clothes box lined with tissue paper. "This is a kimono your grandfather sent me when he was overseas." She let me touch the yellow fabric, creased with years of storage, embroidered with pink and red flowers. "He had to ship out right after we got married," she said. And then, his family never approved of his marrying me. I wish I had asked her more. I wish I had listened to know the journey my family took to bring me here, to this time and place. I think she said one of my greats ran a laundry in England, but I do not know. Without her knowledge, I'm unmoored. In a family that is losing memory, on land where trees count the years in rings, growing proud, wide bands for rainy years, thin ones for drought, dark scores for fire, where you could scoop a hand into the soil of my father's childhood farm town and hold a story, a composition of chemicals from every crop planted, animal raised, and fertilizer sprinkled, by every insect that burrowed and by the birds that ate them, where mountains hold layers that detail millennia, on land that holds memory. My grandmother worked with the force of nature. Thank you. And that concludes our reading this evening. Thank you all so much. What a pleasure it is to be here, and what excellent writers we have in this program. Thank you so much.